Are you intimidated by the thought of solo traveling? You don't have to be. Join us for this episode of Wander and Chat because we are going to take you through all the things that you need to know if you want to go on a solo trip.
Next week, Anna and I are headed out on both of our first Norwegian Cruise Line cruise. It is the
Yeah.
inaugural on the Aqua, which will be in Boston. So I'm not traveling very far to go, and we're not going very far. So we're gonna have lots of time to explore the ship. And we're both super excited to experience Norwegian for the first time, and also this brand new ship. But we wanted to kind of open it up to anyone who had questions about the ship, things that they were wondering about the restaurants, the kids' offerings, the activities. So if you do have questions about this ship or anything Norwegian that we can answer while we're on this trip next week, please visit our Facebook group, Wander and Chat, and join and leave us a question, or you can email us at wanderandchat@gmail.com and we will check it out and then we'll answer it in our episode.
I'm super excited that we don't actually leave Boston because there's no pressure to get off and experience an excursion. We can actually see everything there
Yeah,
is.
we'll be able to see the ship and the restaurants and kind of, I mean, it will be maybe a little chilly in Boston, although it has been a lot warmer. So hopefully we'll get some nice weather and can just do a whole lot of exploring and do some videos and
So
photos
excited.
and stuff. In our main segment, we want to talk all about traveling solo. And this is a huge topic. It's come up a lot. It can be intimidating, but people often want to travel solo, whether it's because, they don't necessarily, you know, want to be on someone else's schedule or they don't have someone they want to travel with. And it can be really liberating and fun. You're on your own. So if you are going to plan this type of vacation, you definitely want to plan ahead. And we have lots of different tips and things to talk about. Let's get right into the big question people ask when they ask about solo travel. Will I feel weird traveling alone?
I think anytime you do something new, it's a little bit awkward. You're going to
Right.
feel a little uncomfortable. So if you're not used to solo traveling, it might be a little bit weird feeling at first, but it is becoming so popular. And I think part of the thinking behind the resurgence or new surgence, I'm not even
Yeah.
sure how to, the reason so many more people are willing to take this risk and do solo travel is because we were all isolated during the pandemic. So we kind of learned to live with ourselves and to do things on our own. So some of the awkward feelings won't be there because people are more comfortable in their own skin and they're perfectly fine doing this solo travel thing. You're also going to find now post pandemic that there are just a lot more options for solo travelers. Cruise lines that didn't used to have solo traveler cabins, they're popping up all over the place. There are sometimes now discounts on accommodations if you're a solo traveler, and resorts and cruise lines and all inclusive places like that. They're all starting to do some sort of solo traveler meet and greet or planning activities that you don't have to be part of a group or part of a couple to enjoy. Like the Grog Walk, for example, on Virgin is all about breaking the ice and meeting people and mixing with everybody. So I think it's less weird now than it used to be.
So if you're considering doing this, how do you find the courage to kind of take that next step?
Yeah, that's a really good question because as an anxious person, and as a crime junkie, I watch all of the crime shows and it automatically puts all these red flags in front of you. Just shut it all off. Shut off the Crime Junkies podcast. Don't watch Law and Order as much as you love it. And I know you do. Everybody does. Just shut that stuff off because a lot of it makes you automatically go to the worst case scenario. Like I'm going to go out by myself to dinner in New York and I'm going to get mugged on the street because I saw it 40 times last week on TV. So you want to take a step back from all of that and know that that's not reality, that that's very much a dramatization. And we're going to talk about safety, but you want to, when you're working up the courage, you want to have some kind of familiarity with a place. So when you're doing your first solo trip, maybe take a weekend at the beach that you've gone to since you were a little kid and you know your favorite restaurant or your favorite spot on the boardwalk or your favorite place to sit in the sun. Or go to Disney where you can kind of get lost in the crowd and just do your own thing. Like nobody's going to notice, the eyes are not going to be on you. I know one of the big steps in doing something solo is going to a restaurant where you feel
Yeah.
like everybody is staring at you because you're sitting by yourself. That's not going to happen at a place like Disney because there are so many people there. You're just kind of going to be part of the crowd. And don't maybe commit to traveling from, New Jersey to California in a car trip all by yourself. Do something short to start out with, do an overnight in New York or, go to Cape Cod for a weekend. Do something that's a little bit smaller and, you know, give yourself props. If you get through that weekend, you know that you can do it. You know that you are going to get through it and you know that you're going to be able to do a longer trip the next time.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you aren't sure, take yourself out to dinner one night and just see, like, how do I
Yeah.
feel about this, right? It's just that it would be a very small, inexpensive step to just see how you feel kind of being solo.
Yeah. It's a great way to introduce yourself to doing stuff on your own, especially if you're not used to doing it.
So, what would be, if you're kind of thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to try this, what would be the first steps to planning?
So absolutely do your research. And I will say, as much as you're going to step back from the catastrophic news stories and dramatizations on TV, you still want to look for places that you are fully aware of the safety issues that surround it or cultural restrictions, requirements for the travel there. Go to the government travel advisories. Don't take them as, absolute gospel that if it says there's a heightened precautions or whatever that you're going to be mugged, but definitely look at them and just know what you're getting into. If it says do not travel to this destination, that's someplace that you might want to reconsider. There is an organization called International Greeters Association. This organization will have people that are sort of vetted. There's no charge for it, but you can reach out to somebody, like let's say you're going to go to Rome. You can reach out to one of these international greeters and they will literally come and meet you and maybe walk you through a neighborhood or walk with you to an attraction that's local there, kind of somebody that you can become friends with and reach out to. Another thing you want to do when you're making those initial planning steps is make sure you have somebody back home that you can reach out to. Set up a time where you can call them or just, a plan to text them while you're away. So somebody knows sort of what your last steps were. If they don't hear from you, they know that the last time they did hear from you, you were at the Spanish Steps in Rome or you were at the Geosphere at Epcot. They kind of have an idea of where you were and what your plans were. So even if it's a family member or a coworker or somebody that you can at least text once or twice a day or get back in touch with, and above everything else, consider your packing list carefully. Just have it all laid out, planned out, and know what you're putting together.
I would also add on to that that this isn't the time to be posting on your public social media that you're alone, right? So
Yeah.
take the pictures, take the videos, post them when you get home. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Um, so what else do we need to consider about packing?
The big thing about packing is you are going to be by yourself. So you want to make sure that you pack maybe a little bit lighter than if you're traveling with friends. Don't bog your stuff down with a ton of stuff. You want to always kind of have one hand free. So if you need to, call 911 on your cell phone, you've got a hand to do it. You're not having to juggle suitcases and handbags and backpacks and everything else. You also want to make sure that if you're going straight from, say, the airport to the hotel, that you're able to get all of your stuff out of baggage claim by yourself, that you don't have four suitcases and a backpack and a, handbag and everything else. Backpacks are a great piece of luggage if you're solo traveling, obviously, because they keep both hands free. And I know you've made recommendations to me in the past about a good quality backpack, that even one that opens like a suitcase so it's a little bit easier to put your stuff in. It's also not the time to skimp on luggage. Don't run to Walmart and just buy whatever is on the shelf. You want to make sure that the handle is not going to get stuck and not pull up when you need it to, or that the wheels are not going to fall off and go crazy. And, any suitcase can have issues. Any suitcase can break during, handling it at baggage claim, or, whatever method of transportation. But you want to make sure that it's a reliable bag so that you know that your zippers may not get stuck or broken, or whatever. But the big thing about luggage is travel light, have at least a hand free, and you just know that you don't need all of the stuff that you are going to be tempted to pack.
If you're going for a long time, try to be able to wash your clothes, even if it's in the sink, just that can make it a lot easier. I don't love doing laundry on vacation, but when you're solo, it's a little bit easier, and it can definitely save you on packing space.
Yeah, and I don't think I realize how often I will turn around and, Jim is there, so I'll hand him something.
Right, right.
Or, because there are two of us, or even if you're traveling with your kids, everybody can carry something. Even the littlest one can throw a backpack on their back, or, some kind of little tote bag or something. So we're very used to, if we are used to traveling with friends and family, we're very used to having another set of hands, or even another set of eyes that can, watch the carousel for an extra bag while you're, putting another one down. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that's something that we have to kind of retrain our brains if we're going from traveling with a family or a lot of friends to traveling by ourselves.
Yeah, I kind of have an interesting story there. So I was coming back from a 6-month internship, and so I had a lot of bags, and I was alone,
Mm.
and I was going into my apartment in Boston, suitcases and way too much stuff. And I put all my stuff down to open the door, and I neglected to grab my purse because I had a million bags to take control of. Now, luckily, my neighbor had seen it and took it, perhaps innocently, although they took it and didn't return it right away. Like they didn't
Oh
knock on the door
no.
and say, "Hey, you left your purse." I had to like go around looking for my purse. But um yeah, it was but when there's too much to keep track of and it's just you, it's better to kind of have a few bigger bags, or one or two bigger bags, than
Yeah.
a whole bunch of bags. Now, speaking of safety, let's talk a little bit about safety and kind of what you need to be aware of when you're traveling alone. I know we've talked about some of this, but
A lot of it is just common sense. And yes, you're definitely going to be a little more vulnerable if you're traveling alone, but there are things that you should just do as a matter of routine. First and foremost, stay in the public areas. Don't go somewhere where you don't feel safe, or if somebody
right.
says, oh, we've got a great deal on this fancy
Yeah.
souvenir or whatever, come back to this dark alley with us. Like, that's a lot of common sense stuff.
Yeah.
Also, like you said, don't advertise that you're by yourself, not only on social media, but don't introduce yourself to somebody in a foreign country by saying, oh, I'm traveling alone,
Yeah. Or in this
because
country
that,
too. I mean, anywhere.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
anywhere, don't let people know that you're by yourself. They don't know that, somebody is not coming to meet you somewhere. So you're less likely to be taken advantage of if they don't automatically know that you're by yourself. Another common sense thing, deadbolt your hotel room door. A lot of us just don't even think about it. We know that the door locks if we close it, but do the extra step and do the deadbolt in there.
There's even on Amazon you can buy even another device that deadbolts it, you know, like on a second basis. Um,
Yeah.
and just to add to the deadbolt situation, I always recommend that when you check into the hotel, you check the deadbolt immediately, because I've had multiple hotel rooms where the deadbolt does not work, and you don't want to be like in your pajamas going to bed when you realize that it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work when you check in,
Yeah, that's
you
so
have,
true.
yeah. Um, I have a story of being by myself in a hotel and realizing the deadbolt didn't work, and like it was because the door had like sagged, so it was like not in the right position,
Oh,
and the guy literally had to come with like a drill. It was like 11 o'clock
oh
at
my
night. He was
gosh.
like opening the lock. So yeah, get that done as soon as you arrive.
Yeah, you want to get that done early. And, to go back to the government safety recommendations, you do want to consider going to places that are generally considered safe.
Right.
Don't
Right.
go to do not travel to this place. It doesn't completely eliminate any risks to you, but you know that generally normal precautions are going to suffice. You don't have to go out and, like your vests and, headgear and stuff like that. You
Right.
can generally do it. Most destinations will have some kind of tours or excursions or something like that. You can book yourself on those so that you're not doing the tours by yourself. At least you have a group of people around you.
Hmm.
So I think that's a really good tip so that you don't necessarily feel alone and put yourself
Right.
in a position where you are alone. And you know, there are some places in this world, and speaking as women, there are some places in this world where it can be culturally inappropriate to be loud. They just expect women to be more demure, very conservatively dressed and stuff like that. But there are times where even if it's inappropriate, you do need to speak up. You do need to be a little aggressive, and be aware of your surroundings and what cultural expectations are, but know that if you're in trouble, it's okay to shout out and to be, a little more forward if you're in a situation that you're just not comfortable.
Yeah, and just to go back to some of the hotel room safety, we talked about locks, and I also recommend that you check if there's a balcony. You're going to want to check that
Mm,
lock also. And one that people tend to forget is if there's connecting rooms, you want to make sure that that is also deadbolted. Um, so I always do like a little safety sweep of the room when I get there, check all the
yeah.
locks, and then report anything that is kind of off with enough time for maintenance
And
to
have you
be done.
seen some of these TikTok videos where, I mean, you literally would need two extra suitcases for all of the stuff that they're
Yeah.
bringing? Like they're bringing stuff for the door and stuff for the phone and stuff for the bathroom. I mean, I have seen them. I don't think you need to bring all of that and do all of that, but I wouldn't discount them either. Some of them do have some good tips and tricks.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the big thing is just, you know, kind of having like a routine that you go through when you get to your room. And, just being um, careful with how you present, how you let people know that you're by yourself. Um, you know,
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
I've been, I've been in elevators. I've traveled alone and I've been in elevators with people that I'm like, you know, I, I just don't necessarily like, a solo guy where I'm like, this person's following me. I don't know if and it's probably they're just going to their room, but I'll pick up my phone and literally, be like, hey, I'm almost in the room. Like make it seem like somebody else is
Yeah.
in the room. Or I don't like to let people walk by me when I'm going into my room by myself.
Yeah, I
Um,
will sometimes if there's someone else getting off of an elevator at the same time that I am and I'm not 100% comfortable, I will delay myself at the elevator. Like I will not walk in the
yeah,
direction
yeah.
of my room. If it's really uncomfortable, I have no problem stepping back onto the elevator, acting like, oh, I'm on the wrong floor and getting back on the elevator, giving them a
Yeah.
chance to get to their room and clear out. And it has nothing to do with, how suspicious looking or whatever. It's just, I don't necessarily want somebody to know that I'm going into a room by myself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's unless it's someone, that I'm with, because sometimes I'll go on trips with people, but I'm by myself. Um, I wouldn't let anyone know that I was going into a room by myself. Not unless it was,
Yeah.
not unless I was going to the room by myself, but I had people already in the room. What do we need to know about costs? When we look at prices of things like cruises, we tend to see things that are double occupancy. And so, what does this mean for the solo traveler and how does that work?
We are getting there. I will just say that the industry is embracing. Hilton invented this term called me mooners, which is sort of like honeymooners or baby mooners. You're taking yourself on a trip, but they are getting better. You will still find a lot of cruise ships. If you are a solo traveler, you do pay almost double what another person would pay for a stateroom, because the price of the stateroom is based on two people occupying that
Right.
space. So you won't get half price on that stateroom as a solo traveler. The only discount you're going to get is with port charges and taxes, because you'll only pay them for yourself. But
Right.
you are still paying for two people to be in that stateroom.
Right.
They are bringing more solo staterooms onto cruise ships. They are bringing more studio type accommodations to resorts and hotels, so that you're not paying double occupancy for a room where there's two queen size beds, but you're only going to sleep in one. So it is getting better. But I think at this point in time, unless you stumble upon one of these solo cruise ship cabins, or a promotion like Virgin Voyages often runs a promotion where the stateroom is basically half price
Yeah.
if you're traveling solo, I think you're still going to have to expect to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, and from a business perspective, if you think about it, especially with the cruise ship, they only have a limited number of rooms, right? So when the room's gone, they'd lose, if they were to only charge half, they'd lose half the revenue on that stateroom.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so
And
that's
I know that people look at it like, well, I'm only eating half the amount of food,
right.
but the stateroom attendant still has to come and clean your room, and they still
Yeah,
have to account for, you're gonna still be doing all the stuff on the ship.
right.
And,
Right.
you might have been sharing a stateroom where somebody just kind of hung back and maybe did work during the day, or didn't participate in as many things. So it's not really based on that. It's just based on the amount of space that you're using, and
Right.
that space is meant for two or more people.
Despite all of these things that we should kind of pay attention to, I think that the takeaway here is that solo travel can still be an incredible experience. It might be a little more expensive, and there are some things to be aware of, but it's still absolutely worth doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great liberating way to see the world. You don't have to be worried about someone else's schedule or someone else's
Mhm.
agenda. You can go and do the things that you want to do, see the things that you want to do, eat in the restaurants that you want to
Mhm.
eat. We all have been there where, you're traveling with your family and with little kids, and you're like, okay, do I go to the Michelin star restaurant, or are we just going to end up at Applebee's
Right.
because everybody's going to eat
Right.
chicken fingers anyway? So it is a truly liberating experience to go and explore the world on your own terms.
Mail call, question stories, let's hear it all. From you to us, it's wonder and chat. So grab a seat, let's talk just like that.
We have a couple of questions from our last episode. Saving money at Disney is a big topic. Everybody wants to know how to do it. So I'm just gonna ask this question, and I know the answer, and I know this is something that we have answered many, many times, but can you bring appliances to your Disney hotel? Like, you want to bring a crock pot so you have a hot meal, or your tea kettle, a microwave. Can you bring any of that stuff? You're
No, you
shaking your
cannot.
head.
No, you cannot. Um, I mean, there are things in, you are going to get a coffee maker, and there are microwaves in the food courts generally. Shared microwaves. Um, but no, you should not bring any appliances to Disney.
Anybody that has seen This Is Us knows that you don't bring a crock pot. It's the most dangerous appliance in your kitchen.
We're all traumatized by that episode.
Yeah, we are. Forever, forever. Do any of the Disney hotels include tickets? Like, when you go to the Disney website and you pull up the Grand Floridian at $800 a night, surely that includes some kind of theme park ticket.
I mean, you can purchase. So no, when you look at room only rates, it is literally room only. But there are package deals that you can purchase on the website, and you can buy your tickets with your hotel. Um, and you'll purchase them for the days that you are traveling, so that you get, the pricing. Uh, but when you just look up the room rate, it does not include tickets
And no breakfast.
and no breakfast.
And speaking of breakfast, Disney every once in a while will throw out this free dining package where if you book your room and book your tickets, you can eat for free. Is this a deal? Is this something that you should look at?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it's going to depend on how you vacation and how you plan to use the dining package, because the dining package does include a lot. Um, and you're typically getting the rack rate of the room with the free dining. So you want to kind of compare um, what you would pay with the dining and without the dining. The thing about the dining package is you do just have to think about how much you're going to eat, because um, I know for me, I wouldn't necessarily eat all the food that would come with the dining package, and my kids wouldn't have either. So, um, it's going to depend.
Have you ever been at the hotel? And I know I have, so I assume everybody has seen it. It's like the end of someone's vacation and you're standing behind them and they have dining plan credits left over. So they're buying up all of like the Rice Krispie treats
Right,
and the
right.
stuff that's wrapped.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know for me the dining plan would never work only because, I just I cannot see spending that much money if it's not going to be to my pocketbook's best interest. And if I have this dining plan that I've paid for, I want to make sure that I'm getting my money's worth out of it, which means I may not be eating the things that I even want to eat. I might go to a restaurant and see, well, the steak here is $45 and I have to order that because I've spent so much money on the dining plan that I want to eat the most expensive things, when really you just want a salad or a soup or something like that. So
right.
I think you're right when you say, it really depends on your family and how you travel. And, you may not get the most bang for your buck by a free dining plan.
Right, absolutely. It's back to everything that we said in that episode, that you really do need to think about kind of your experience and how you'll plan on experiencing your vacation.
Yeah, I always recommend when free dining is offered, I recommend to my clients that they price the room without the free dining before they add the free dining, because
Yeah,
usually free dining comes with some kind of, you have to pay rack rate for the room, or you have to have a certain number of nights at the hotel
right,
and theme park tickets and the whole package. And maybe it's not necessarily what you want. Like if you buy the package that includes free dining, you're getting more than you would have paid for without it.
right, right.
In the news recently is skip lagging, which I know is something that you have a really strong opinion about. I think I knew that it was a thing, but I didn't know it was like a controversial thing. But with everybody trying to save money on travel, obviously this is something people are going to look at. So talk to me about skip lagging.
Yeah, so this kind of came up in the news with an article from the travel guide localsinsider.com. And they talked specifically about people looking at Atlanta, Miami, and Minneapolis as skip lagging destinations. And so what this is you book a flight from one destination to another, but with a layover. And the layover is actually your ultimate destination. And so
Mhm.
you get on the flight in your hometown and you fly to the layover location, and then you get off and you leave, and you don't take that second half. Um, and a lot of times people do this because it is cheaper. It doesn't make sense that it's cheaper, but it is cheaper than from going from, A to C rather than going it from A to B. Um,
Mhm.
and so, you know, it's obviously, this study is showing that it's becoming really popular for these certain cities, and people are trying to save money on travel. So we had chatted about this a little bit, and I had said that I don't generally think it's a great idea. And so I'm going to give you a few reasons why. One, and I think this is kind of the most important, is that the airlines generally discourage this. So they don't want
Mhm.
you to do this. Um, this is, for a whole variety of reasons. It's kind of a logistical mess. Um, so why don't I love it? One, I think we've both experienced this recently, where you book a flight and then the airlines make some changes, right? So if you buy a
Yep.
flight from like Boston to LA, that's what you've purchased. You haven't purchased the layover. So if any changes are made, the airline is responsible to getting you from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
Um, you can't check luggage in this scenario at all, because your luggage will be in LA while you're in Minneapolis. Um,
I did not even think of that, but yeah, that's an issue.
yeah. And if So even if you say, well, I'll travel carry on only, that means that you can't possibly have your bag taken because there isn't room on the plane. And we all know that happens a lot.
Hmm.
Um, you know, if there's weather issues or delays, again, the airline's responsible for getting you from one point to the other. And so,
Hmm.
the odds of things changing, um, I just think the risk is too high and the airlines don't love it.
Right. We did a flight with my grandchildren a year ago from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, and we were supposed to have a layover that ended up not being a layover, and it was just a flight stop. They were bringing a new crew onto the plane, but we were staying on the same plane, and
Hmm.
they did not let you get off of the plane.
Yeah,
You had to stay on the plane. So that's one of those situations where if you had relied on this skip lagging option to get you, to Denver or wherever, you were not getting to Denver. You had to go to LA and then
right.
find your way back to Denver. So yeah, that's definitely happened in my house. So I totally see that.
Yeah, I just think the risk is it's just too high. Besides the fact that the airlines
And
don't want you to do this and have said that they will penalize repeat offenders.
yeah, I just, when reading the article, I saw that airlines are going to start cracking down. And if this is something that you do often, you may
Yeah.
not be able to fly on that airline anymore. And that kind of brings up a whole other issue with, finding flights, which is why I'm now going to mention Southwest, not so much from the new luggage policy that they have, because Southwest, you always were able to take two free bags. And that was a really big
Yeah.
incentive for especially families to take Southwest. Um, I guess I want to know what you feel about that. And my opinion on it is it so doesn't apply to me anymore because Southwest is no longer a viable flight option for me out of Philly. I mean, even to go the 2.5 hours to Orlando, I have to take a flight with a layover. There's like never a direct flight. It's only an early morning flight or a late night flight. So what do you think about the luggage change? And is it a policy that's going to impact a ton of people?
I think so. Boston has never been a hub for Southwest, and there just aren't a ton of flights. I have flown Southwest before out of Boston, um, but it's never going to be like the main airline I fly because there just aren't as many options. Um, that being said, I think Southwest has been, because of its luggage policy, um, and its pricing, has been a huge airline for many families, and I've seen it a lot in the college move-in.
Hmm.
People who are flying their kids cross country to a new um, college. Those two bags times three or four family members kind of move a kid into college. Um, I think it's going to have a big
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah, I guess it will. And I guess it's just it's almost a last resort for me out of Philly now to look at a Southwest airline that I just expect to have to pay for bags. So I think if I did look into a Southwest flight, it would just be, par for the course to have to pay
Yeah,
for bags.
yeah, yeah. Definitely the same personally, but I think more broadly, for our listeners, I think that it's a big impact. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Wander and Chat. Please join us next time. We're going to talk all about your room location, whether it be on the cruise ship or in a hotel. We're going to talk about what matters with room location, how to request specific room locations, and everything else you need to know. So join us next time.